Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Insuring India, where we talk about all things insurance. I'm Disha Sangvi, and on today's episode, we discuss the one phenomenon that is expected to take over the automobile industry sooner than we could imagine. Yes, electric vehicles. Not only do they look cool, they're also cost effective and better for the environment. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a large influx of new companies in the EV space, and more Indians, in fact, are now proactively opting for EVs. I love numbers and I have some interesting ones for you. But before that, did you know there is a Society of Manufacturers of Electric Vehicles? Yes, there is. And according to them, EV sales in India is expected to be around 10 lakh units this year, equal to what was sold collectively in the last 15 years. Also, in 2021, the sales of electric two-wheelers in the country jumped over twofold at 2,33,900 units, driven by higher demand for high-speed scooters. Now here's the thing. The central and state governments too are doing their bit by introducing impactful policies to build a cleaner and greener transportation system. While all this is great, as potential buyers of EVs, one thing that would concern you the most is insurance. Questions like, do insurers cover EVs? How much does it cost to insure them? Are premiums higher for insuring EVs compared to other motor vehicles, etc., etc.? On this episode, I have with me Adarsh Agarwal, Chief Distribution Officer, Corporate Business, Digit Insurance. If there is anyone who knows the inside out of EV insurance, it's him. With over 15 years of experience in the actuarial space, Adarsh has been with Digit since the company's founding year. Before joining Digit, he was the actuarial head at Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. Hi Adarsh, welcome to Insuring India.
Hi Disha.
Adarsh, we are seeing a host of new companies emerging in the EV space, so obviously the opportunity is big. So how can insurers leverage this growth to ensure they keep up with the changing times?
So Disha, definitely the EV space is changing a lot, and new players are coming here, and we see this as a large opportunity coming up.
Right.
Just to take few names, like if you see Ather is there, which are already an established player in this market, and they have a decent distribution as well as the manufacturing facility.
Yes.
Ola Electric is there, Hero Electric is there. So Ola has set up like large plant, and their plan is to not just cater to the domestic market, they might also look at the exports as well.
Yeah.
So significant amount of investment is being done in electrical vehicles, and it is not limited just to two-wheelers. It extends to private passenger cars, it extends to commercial vehicles as well. So recently we were working on a proposal where there is a company who are going to buy 2,000 electrical trucks, and when I'm saying trucks, these are like really heavy ones.
That's big actually, that's a huge development.
Yes, and many places we have also seen like lot of state governments are going for electrical buses to reduce the pollution and other things. So lot of activities happening, and of course from insurance perspective it becomes a great opportunity to tap upon. Second thing also heading here is not just commercial vehicle, even passenger cars. If we see, Tata is coming big way into the electrical passenger cars.
Yes.
MG, Hyundai, Mahindra, they are also coming up with few models in the electrical vehicle space. So overall electrical vehicle space is undergoing dramatic changes, and over a period of time I think many more manufacturers will come into this, and it puts a lot of opportunity for the entire ecosystem. And that definitely includes the insurance domain as well.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. But EVs are relatively more expensive compared to other motor vehicles. So in my mind, this makes it important to have them insured. But Adarsh, how easy or difficult is it to get your EV insured in India today?
So insuring EV for a traditional product, it's easy. So I think most of the insurers website currently offer insurance for electrical vehicles.
Yes.
As of now, the insurance which is offered are of two types. One is a traditional motor insurance policy, which will give coverage for both accidental damage, also known as own damage, but they also provide cover for the third party component.
Yes.
Apart from that, there are certain low end of electrical vehicles which does not fall into the motor insurance category. So they don't specifically need a mandatory third-party insurance. For such segment of vehicles which are of low speed and low capacity of their battery, some of the insurers also offer the asset insurance product, which is essentially covering the accidental damage piece of the vehicle.
Right.
So all these insurance are readily available, but one main concern in terms of availability of insurance is that batteries form a significant part of the electrical vehicle. For some of the electrical vehicle, battery could be as high as 30-35% cost of the entire vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the design of that vehicle, some of the vehicles could be prone to the theft of the battery on a standalone basis.
Yes.
And of course, certain geographies are more prone to the theft of the vehicles or theft of the components. So for those specific geographies and for those specific types of vehicle, where insurers feel that, battery theft could be very high, I feel they are, underwriting because of the underwriting restrictions, the availability of insurance could be a challenge, or, if it is available at a higher premium than what is available for the other parts of the country or other types of vehicle.
So is it safe to say that while getting your EV insured may not be a problem? The premium that you pay could be higher in some cases.
Yes, so I would say the availability of insurance will always be there. It's not like you can't insure your EV, but you might have to pay slightly higher premium if it is more prone to theft. But otherwise, insurance availability won't be a challenge.
But Adarsh, there aren't many insurers with a specialized EV product in their portfolio. As someone who holds significant experience in the actuarial space, what do you think are the top 3 concerns that insurers have today when it comes to covering EVs?
Difficult question, Disha, but I will try to answer this.
Sure.
So battery theft is of course a big challenge, and depending on the design and the geography, the insurer need to do the right pricing to take into account the theft. The second question which comes is now in new electrical vehicles, generally electrical vehicles are associated with low power and low acceleration. But with much more innovation, now new electrical vehicles comes which have high power and high acceleration as well.
Yeah.
So even some of the electrical vehicles might have higher acceleration than the traditional non-electrical vehicles. In such cases, the probability of accident as well as the severity of accident could be much higher than the non-traditional vehicles. So that also need to be taken into account. One positive things with electrical vehicles is that unlike petrol or diesel vehicles, uses of electrical vehicles will be much more limited to the city uses.
Absolutely.
Unlikely people are going to go on highway for long journey taking their EVs. So that reduces the risk. Propensity of the claims goes down, as well as the claim size or the average claim value might also go down. So that reduces the risk from electrical vehicle perspective. One more thing which comes to my mind is that, the depreciation of battery is another critical element. Because batteries might depreciate much rapidly than the traditional value of a vehicle. So if we are insuring a vehicle which is not a new vehicle, which is let's say 2, 3 or 4 years old vehicle, then putting a right value to the battery becomes very important. Otherwise, insurers might fall into this, moral hazard kind of thing. If they are giving a IDV or the sum insured of the vehicle, which is much higher than their market value, then some of the locations or some of the people might take advantage of this and then try to create human created loss and take advantage of the insurance. So these are the 3-4 things that comes to my mind when looking at the pricing aspect of the electrical vehicles.
Very valid points actually. But as of where we stand today, is it mandatory for all electric two-wheelers to have a third-party insurance?
So no, it's not mandatory for all electrical vehicles to take insurance. In fact, our Motor Vehicle Act defines what is a motor vehicle and what is not a motor vehicle. So the electrical vehicles where maximum speed is less than 25 km per hour, as well as their battery capacity is less than 250 watts. They are not categorized as motor vehicles.
Okay.
And if they are not categorized as motor vehicles, they don't need a mandatory third-party insurance. Having said that, from the vehicle owner's perspective, it's always good to have a third-party insurance, even if motor insurance does not mandate to have a third-party insurance, because liability can be humongous. You never know, what can happen to third party, and to be on safer side, it's always good to have insurance even for the third party vehicles.
Absolutely. Adarsh, my next question is something that I think most people who are planning to buy an EV would wonder about at some point. Premiums. Since EVs are expensive and could result in high value claims, do you think insurers will have to resort to quoting higher premiums to keep their loss ratio in check?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
If we look at the most of the vehicles, whether it's an electrical vehicle or a non-electrical vehicle, most of the time the damage of the vehicle happens to the exteriors.
Mm-hmm.
And that exteriors might mean like, doors or bumpers or bonnet or that kind of element. Total loss scenarios are far and few.
Okay.
So keeping that in mind, the electrical vehicle risk or premium might not be significantly different than the traditional vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, in India, there is very limited data which is available to the insurers to gauge whether electrical vehicle will be more risky or less. Insurers start with certain assumptions, basis whatever they know about similar risk, either worldwide or in the same geography.
Mm-hmm.
And as and when more experience emerge, the insurers modify their assumptions to make the pricing more suitable to the underlying risk. And I believe same journey has to be done for the electrical vehicles as well in India.
Mm-hmm.
So over a period of time, there will be more data which will evolve.
Well, that makes sense. This brings me to my next question. Insured declared value plays a big role in deciding how much an insurer will pay the insured in case of total loss. So Adarsh, as EV sales go up, do you think insurers will have to look at a different way of arriving at the IDV for EVs?
Yes, this is a very valid point, Disha, here, because battery of the EV is a big component in the overall cost.
Exactly.
And the battery depreciation will be, of course, different than, other parts of the vehicle. So if EV is not rightly, valued in terms of how much insurance value should be ascribed to a electrical vehicle, which is not a new vehicle, and then how the value goes down during the year of the policy or in the subsequent year, then, it can create challenges for both insurers as well as the policy holders.
Mm-hmm.
So if, let's say, battery vehicle value is not right, and let's say it's lesser than the market value, then customer is at a disadvantage, because in case of total loss, they are not getting the right value as an insurance claim.
Mm-hmm.
And if I talk about the other way around, if it is more than the market value, then insurer feels there could be moral hazard, where policyholders might try to take advantage of insurance and might try to take claim and getting a better claim amount than the actual market value. So deciding on the right vehicle value or the insured value, it becomes much more critical in case of electrical vehicle, and historical values as used for petrol or diesel vehicles, that might not be a right depreciation scale to apply.
Right. In fact, I've been wondering about this myself. Another thing that just struck me, Adarsh, is that premiums are linked to the risk exposure, which is based on historical data, and this is something you mentioned too. But with so little data on EVs, do you think insurers will have to rely on a combination of mathematical models as the market matures? And if I could add another point here, we are also hearing about startups that are working towards making EVs cheaper. Could this make premiums extremely dynamic as we go forward?
If we look at, because new EVs companies are coming, and they are trying to reduce the cost of ownership of a new vehicle. But traditionally what happens that ownership of the new vehicle is reduced because manufacturers try to either subsidize the cost or reduce their margin for sale of new vehicles.
Right.
But what happens that spare part cost or the labor cost, that does not change with the change in the vehicle value. So what happens when insurance companies does the pricing, they take into account what is the cost of the vehicle, which is essentially the new vehicle cost, and for the subsequent years also the premium will be linked to the new vehicle cost in a reduced way, taking into account depreciation. But if a vehicle repair cost in terms of both labor part as well as spare is not reducing in proportion to the new price of the vehicle, then insurers are at a disadvantage because they will charge lesser premium, assuming it to be a cheaper vehicle and hence a lesser cost of the repair and spare parts, but that might not be true. So, of course, if more and more manufacturers will try to reduce the cost of ownership of new vehicles without having corresponding change in the reduction of the spare part cost and labor cost, the pricing will be much more dynamic because sooner or later insurers will come to know this and they will recorrect the price. One more thing which might happen here is the import duty or foreign exchange fluctuation, because some of the companies might import the parts from outside rather than manufacturing in India. And that poses another challenge because when claim comes, the import duty might change or the exchange rate might change. That way the price of the part might go up. So that also needs to be taken into account.
Absolutely. So while we've addressed what's happening in India when it comes to insuring EVs, could you share some insights on the path that some of the leading insurers are taking globally?
So what I personally know and understand that for most of the European and Asian market where EVs are already in high proportion and high volumes, usually they have seen that EVs are higher risk as compared to the traditional ICE vehicles. But having said that, I will say that in India we are yet to see this because we are not sure that in India also electrical vehicle will pose higher risk. But depending on country to country, location to location, theft is one element which can make the difference. Another element is if battery is not of sound quality and proper testing is not done, then it might lead to fire and that way vehicle catching fire and total loss. So I think this is to be seen with time.
Yes, I guess only time will tell. Now coming to what we are doing at Digit when it comes to EV insurance. What approach are we taking when it comes to covering EVs, and do you see this evolving as we gather more data?
In India, EV space is still emerging. While some of the developed nations in Europe and a few countries in Asia, electrical vehicles is a big segment out there. So we have a lot to learn from there. At Digit, if I see, we identified EV as a growth area or focus area roughly about 1.5 years back. And we had set up a dedicated team in our company to focus on this area and what new we can do for electrical vehicles. Currently, to the electrical vehicles, we offer all types of motor insurance product, which could be standalone third-party cover or standalone own damage cover or comprehensive cover or a bundled cover, which takes care of the new vehicles for long term. At the same time, there are certain vehicles which are of low capacity and low speed. They don't need a mandatory third-party insurance. For such vehicles, we have a product called Asset Care. In this product, we provide the accidental damage protection cover to these vehicles.
Okay.
As of now, battery becomes a critical component. So in future, there could be, plans for insurance company, and I'm just thinking loudly when I'm saying this, that, some of the insurers might come up with a standalone battery product.
Absolutely.
Or, and covering the rest of the vehicle in a separate policy. So innovation will, of course, going to happen on the EV space as more and more vehicles come.
And from a distribution point of view, do you see insurers adopting a different strategy for EV products?
To an extent, yes, and I would say no as well. So it depends on the distribution strategy of the OEM or the manufacturer. So I won't take name here, but couple of the leading OEMs in this space, they are thinking of direct to customer strategy. So selling their vehicles online, taking booking online, also offering insurance online. So for such partners, we have to go more on a digital and online way. And of course, there will be another set of OEMs or the manufacturer who will go into a dealership model. And then, for those kind of OEMs, insurers will take the different approach as a traditional approach of selling motor insurance. And when it will come to the renewals of the vehicle, so once vehicle becomes 1 year older, then I believe that is still the segment of customers who will buy EV, they will be more tech savvy and millennial population. So they will go more for the online or direct to the company website rather than going through the traditional distribution channels of agency or brokers.
Very interesting. The finance minister announced a battery swapping scheme, which is likely to address some of the concerns around charging infrastructure in the country, right? So do you think this will further accelerate the uptake for EVs in the coming years?
It will definitely increase the uptake of EV in the country. And I will share a personal, experience here. So
sure.
I stay in a large society in Bangalore where we have about 1800 units. And I could see some of the owners posing questions to the management committee that, we are buying electrical vehicles and we can't, charge the vehicle because, parking, there is no charging stations. And some of them were asking that, allow us for an extension where we can, pull a electrical wire and set up my own charging unit kind of thing, which can be built to my meter. And eventually, society could not allow this because, it poses a challenge of, everyone doing their own thing and great fire hazard to the society.
Right.
And now this I'm talking about 6 months back, but now we have 5 charging stations in our society, which has been set up by the OEMs, and I can see, more EV in my society than what I used to see earlier. So, of course, this charging infrastructure improving in the country, this will definitely provide a lot of boost to the electrical vehicle sales in coming years. And going forward, EVs might start going more on a highway and long drives, which they are not in current scenario. From insurers' perspective like us, I think this opens up another opportunity to offer the right product for such charging stations. So now many companies are also thinking about setting up these charging stations where you come up with your own battery, which is a discharge battery. You put it back into the charging station and take a replacement battery. So there is no waiting time for the charging.
Right.
And in such a scenario, providing a end-to-end insurance solution, which could be a liability policy, a protection cover to the charging station, liability to the charging station towards the individual battery which the vehicle owner has taken away, or a theft cover of that battery. So many more possibilities of insurance which comes up for these charging stations.
The anecdote you shared says a lot about how the category is evolving, and I think it will only get more interesting in the coming years. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thanks so much, Adarsh, for sharing some great insights. I'm sure there's been a lot for our listeners to take away from this conversation. Thanks again. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back soon with another exciting episode of Insuring India, a podcast by Digit Insurance. Until then, take care and stay safe.
Let's do the digit dance. Let's do Digit Insurance.